Welcome back to the program, everyone. At the inauguration of the 10th Assembly, the Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, pledged the readiness of the House to constructively engage with the public to deepen the nation's democracy. 2 years on, the House have legislated over several bills poised to achieve the yearnings and desires of Nigerians. But how have these decisions of the lawmakers impacted the life of Nigerians? Is Nigeria better off under the 10th Assembly? But before we get into the conversation with my guest tonight, let's share this report with you.
14 subsection 1H of the FEMA Amendment Act 2007 stipulates that 5% of the pump price of petrol and diesel should be allocated to FEMA and state maintenance agencies in the ratio of 40% and 60%. 18 years after, the House of Representatives is concerned about the deplorable state of many Nigerian roads and has set up this ad hoc committee to investigate and recommend ways of achieving implementation of the law.
This section of the Act has been complied more in breach, despite various attempts by the National Assembly through its oversight activities to compel compliance.
Today's hearing marks a significant milestone in our inquiry. It is an important opportunity for all stakeholders to provide clarifications, submit documents, and help this committee establish the true status of the user charge.
The ministry says funding remains the greatest challenge facing FEMA. FEMA barely gets 20% of its budgetary needs year in, year out.
The agency requires an estimated amount of 880 billion naira annually to maintain our 36,000 kilometers of roads nationwide.
This account will be a dedicated account for road maintenance with statutory protection, ensuring that funds cannot be diverted or delayed by the Ministry of Finance or CBN.
The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority testifies that it hasn't been able to implement the law due to non-availability of a pricing template.
We recommend the establishment of appropriate regulatory frameworks to govern the modalities for the collection of the user charge.
What has become evident in the course of the hearing is that agencies take advantage of loopholes in the law to evade remittance. Among others, FEMA recommends the creation of a roads maintenance account for the agency with statutory protection from any form of interference. The assurance from this ad hoc committee is that it will be fair and thorough in the discharge of its responsibilities. It has also promised to look at all loopholes hindering FEMA from attaining its goal. Joke Edsa, TVC News.
All right, so tonight, Honorable Francis Wivey, Chairman House Committee on Rules and Business, joins me on the program for that assessment. Honorable Wivey, good evening to you. Welcome to Politics Tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for having me on the program once again.
All right, thank you so much. You chair the House Committee on Rules and Business, a key committee within the House of Reps of Nigeria. And I know some persons call that committee the engine room for managing the flow and shedding of legislative business in the House. So what would you describe as the key achievement of the House in the last 2 years?
Thank you very much. The legislations that we have turned out has helped the life of the Nigerian people, and that is very key to us. You know, very recently we passed successfully the Tax Reform Act bill, because Mr. President was soon going to give his assent, so it's still a bill. But both houses have concurred, and that is already done. So we want to appreciate the way the House was able to go through the process with the concern of Nigerians being taken into effect. You would also remember the Students' Loans Act now, which also came through. And then you would remember the minimum wage bill, which is now an act increasing the minimum wage. I can go on and on to mention specific legislation that have affected the Nigerian people. But I want to particularly bring out the leadership style of Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, PhD, the Speaker of the 10th Assembly. He has made the House of Representatives a people's parliament. For all of us members, there is consultation on everything. Take the tax reform bills, for instance. He consulted even individual members, state caucuses, regional caucuses, and then before going on to second reading. That's his method. And he's not only done that for the Tax Reform Act, he's done it for every legislation that comes around, especially when there is one that people talk about and are concerned about. But more than that, he has involved the Nigerian people. Usually we have the public hearing as a process after second reading. When any bill is referred to a committee, they do a public hearing, invite stakeholders, members of the public to come and air their opinion. He has increased this, pushed the frontiers forward. Every time there's a budget during this tenure, he has had a public hearing on the budget, as it were. Not just the committee level, but the House level, to hear from the public what they have to say. And then he's also done the open week, where Nigerians can come and assess what we are doing, ask questions. So this 10th Assembly is more or less one of the most open assemblies in this in the history of democracy in our country. And we're very proud of it. We brought stability to the system. We have brought transparency to the system. And we are proud to be members of the 10th Assembly. And we have made laws that have improved the life and the living standard of Nigerian people. Take the issue of insecurity, for instance. We have ensured that budget reallocations to the armed forces are never denied or delayed. And we also have performed oversight functions over these allocations, going around to see these armaments as they are purchased and ensuring that Nigeria as a country gets money, value for money. So the National Assembly has been a lively one and has contributed to national development. And these 2 years that we are celebrating His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's government, we are proud to say that we are part of this system.
Absolutely. Yes, the president just clocked 2 years in office, and I mean, according to Mr. President, he says it's a must that he succeeds. But how are the lawmakers assisting the executive to deliver dividends of democracy to Nigerians and also deepen good governance, especially with how high cost of living has become?
This matter of cost of living, we are fortunate to have a president who has been courageous enough to do what Nigeria ought to have done 30, 40 years ago. The IMF and you remember the debates whether to take or not to take the World Bank loan in the 80s, and the conditionalities were there. Deregulate your foreign exchange market, remove subsidy on petroleum. And we kept shifting the goalposts until 2022, when we could no longer even pay, the total receipts could no longer pay for our debt servicing. It was so bad that we couldn't do anything else. The National Assembly did not budget anything for subsidy from June 2023. And so when Mr. President came, he was courageous enough to follow that trend and insist that subsidy is gone. And we in the National Assembly has not gone backward to, make provisions again for subsidy. Rather, we have approved the supplementary budgets that have requested for palliatives to the Nigerian people. We have also, from our earnings and from our sources, provided palliatives for the Nigerian people. And Nigerians in 360 constituencies across this nation will testify that members of the House were out in their various constituencies contributing to what Mr. President was doing is doing for the nation. So now we are beginning to enjoy some stability both to the exchange rate and to the inflation rate. So you could be sure now that if you buy a dollar for 1,580 yesterday, today it will be thereabout. The same figure, plus or minus 10, 5, thereabout. And if you know that you went to buy rice yesterday and it was 2 naira, you can be sure if you go today, it will be 2 naira or 2 naira 5 kobo or something.
But I'm sure Nigerians have started saying,
and we are glad that we are able to contribute
I'm
to
sure
this.
Nigerians have started saying they do not want palliatives. They want to be able to achieve or rather afford basic things. But we'll come back to that. I want you to talk to us about, how many bills have been passed in the last 2 years, especially those ones that are people-oriented. What bills or motions are you most proud of in this period?
Well, I already mentioned the wage bill, the minimum wage bill. I've mentioned the tax reform bill. I've mentioned the students' loans bill. And there are several others like that. And there's a particular one that is not in the public domain yet, but has been passed by the House of Representatives, which is the audit bill. We've been relying on the audit ordinance of 1956 as a nation, colonial ordinance. But the House of Representatives have passed the audit bill, awaiting concurrence from the Senate. And it's one bill I'm very proud of because it's going to bring to modern terms the practice of audit, especially public auditing. So when the Auditor General of the Federation presents his annual report to the Public Accounts Committee, there will be a template with which to work that will be very modern. And those heads of agencies, ministries and departments who are found to be in breach will definitely now know the outcome and punishment that we would have to face. It's one legislation I'm very proud of, and we are looking forward to the Senate giving concurrence to that. On the number that we have passed, I can tell you as Chairman Rules and Business that at the last count, we had over 2,000 bills passed first reading. And for second reading, we already have over 200. For total passage, that's third reading, over 200. The reason here is that it's a process. Lawmaking is a process. First reading, you could read every bill. It's an intention by every lawmaker who wants to, who has an intention. And then this first reading is an opportunity for members to go through what you have proposed. It's at the second reading that we now discuss the merits and the demerits of the bill. We talk about how good a piece of legislation is, and then the question is put to vote. If the ayes have it, it now is referred to a committee. All right. And that committee will have to do some work, do public hearing, before it comes back to the committee of the whole, where you now discuss it clause by clause consideration. All of this takes time, and we want to be thorough. We want to be sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, so that the law that will eventually emanate from this process will be for the benefit of the Nigerian people. So that's what we have done, and we're continuing to do. And we thank God that the parliamentary practice, the legislature, is becoming mature in our democracy. 26 years unbroken. Right. The first time
and
that
for
we
your
have
own committee, Honorable, for your own committee, you're the chair of the Rules and Business Committee. How would you describe the effectiveness of your committee in facilitating legislative work? What reforms or innovations has your committee introduced to improve the legislative process? Have there been significant challenges in managing the flow of business on the floor of the House? And, how have these been addressed? Right.
Yeah, one of the major challenges we faced as a committee when we came in was the issue of the high turnover that we had in the 10th Assembly. About 80% membership being new to Parliament. And so we had these issues of the drafting style and all of that, because any bill you bring in, even a motion, we'll have to scrutinize it. And after scrutiny, we have to journalize. And then before we do first reading for any bill. So we had this challenge of the drafting style, but Mr. Speaker, the Right Honorable Tajudeen Abbas, PhD, he handled that very well. There have been several trainings, and right now, I must tell you that the standards have improved, the inputs that we get. What we did as a committee, too, was to try to digitalize the process a little bit. Mr. Speaker is trying to work on an application that will now be applicable to the entire House. But for us as a committee, when we do the paperwork and Mr. Speaker signs on your bill or motion referring it to our committee, we request members to also provide soft copies so that we don't go about typing afresh what you had already done and all that. So once we have Mr. Speaker's signature on your hard copy, we also have your soft copy. We can go on now to work on that, your soft copy. So the fact that we are now getting digitalized has eased our work a little bit. Those days, members of the committee would stay in the office till 10 p.m. Now, we close a little much earlier. And then on the floor, one challenge we faced again on the floor is that
Honorable, kindly hold on. Kindly hold on, Honorable. it's important for me to let our audience know that they can continue to watch the program on YouTube and on our other platforms. All right, Honorable, please go ahead.
Yeah, another uncover the secrets of the financial world. We analyze.
It's definitely not going to appear every week because everybody must have their own opportunity. So it's one challenge we've had, and so being chairman rules and business has not been popular because the day you list somebody's bill or motion, you are his friend. The day you didn't list it, you are his enemy. But we're not here to please people. We are here to serve our country, to ensure that the bills and the motions that appear on the order paper every legislative day is something comparable to the best in the world. Because we go on visits, peer review to other countries, and we see what is on their order paper. We want to be sure that our order paper, the agenda for the day is such that can be comparable with the best in the entire earth. And I'm glad that in 2 years in the saddle, the House of Representatives have been very matured in its proceedings, and what appears on our order paper has been very nationalistic, no partisan, no tribalistic, no religious divide. We have tried to make sure that we work in the national interest. And so it's something I'm very proud of, and I commend members of my committee for that.
All right, Honorable, let's talk about judicial reform, because I'm aware of the fact that one of the priorities of the Assembly is strengthening good governance, with special attention on judicial reform, rule of law, and human rights. Because, you know, over the years, several challenges have impeded the rule of law in Nigeria. But in the last 2 years, what steps have been taken by the 10th Assembly in reforming and strengthening the judiciary in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I would immediately refer to the work that is being done by the Constitution Review Committee. A very excellent job being done. The other day, they're having retreats with different segments of the Nigerian society, with speakers of the state assemblies, with governors, and they've had one with the judiciary, from the Court of Appeal, the high courts, even the customary courts, and all of that have been represented. And so their opinions have been sought I don't know whether I'm hearing you.
Please go ahead, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the opinion of the judiciary have been heard, and then the suggestions of the Nigerian public as to the Constitution, particularly the aspects that have to do with the judiciary, have been put on paper and presented before them for their own reaction. And I can assure you that the Constitution Review Committee, because most of the things that have to do with the judiciary are constitutional, and so that committee is working on that, and the Nigerian people will be pleased with the outcome that will come. Access to justice, justice that is not delayed, justice that is real, that people can relate with and say, yeah, this is true and right, and justice that's equal for every Nigerian, with nobody being above the law.
Right. So Honorable, I asked that question because after the Assembly was inaugurated, I had a conversation with Honorable Philip Agbese, and he said to me that the House of Reps was very particular about consulting on the merit of establishing specialized courts to handle specific types of cases, which could expedite case resolution and reduce backlog. So has there been any move on this in the last 1 year or 2 years?
Yeah, as chairman of the House Committee on Rules and Business, I can tell you that there are several bills in that respect. There's one that came recently to increase the number of judges on the bench of the Supreme Court, even on the Court of Appeal and the High Courts, the Federal High Court and State High Courts and all that. Now, there's also been a bill requesting to create special courts for electoral offenses under the Electoral Act. That has been going on too. I think that is already at the second reading stage. There is also a bill to create an audit tribunal so that heads of and agents of ministries, departments, and agencies of government who are found culpable by the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament can face that tribunal directly without going to the regular courts to waste the time of the taxpayer. and also to relieve the executive of that function of executing the outcome of the Public Accounts Committee's work. So these are legislations that are in the process, and we believe that when they eventually get passed, we'll get answered from the executive arm of government. Those are examples of some of the legislation in the area that you are talking about, enhancing access to justice and quick justice and dispensation of justice for the common man.
All right. All right, then. I mean, 3 months ago, Honorable, you were speaking to my colleagues, TVC and Shomomo in Abuja. You clearly told them that the House plans to investigate allegations that USAID is funding Boko Haram. So where is the House on that, as that investigation started? If it has, is there an update
to investigate what?
Did you get that, Honorable?
To investigate what?
To invest, you told my colleagues in Abuja, TVC and Shomomo, that the House plans to investigate allegations that USAID is funding Boko Haram.
All right.
Yes, so as that investigation started.
Yes, a committee was actually put together, an ad hoc committee of the House was set up to investigate that allegation that you said, or USAID was funding Boko Haram. You know, that was an allegation made by a U.S. congressman, an equivalent of a member of the House of Representatives in Nigeria, that's the U.S. House of Reps. And a member brought it as a matter of urgent public importance on the floor. And the motion was passed, and another committee was set up to investigate that allegation. That committee has since gone to work, and their report is ready and will be considered by committee of the whole as soon as it's presented on the floor. So I can assure the Nigerian public that the committee has gone to work, and that we are not leaving any stone unturned to ensure that if anybody is found culpable or guilty in that direction, justice is served.
So I need to have your word, Honorable. Should Nigerians trust that this is not just one of those endless probes the House of Reps embarks on, but at the end of the day, it ends up being another waste of resources and time? Is that a commitment?
I disagree with you. We don't embark on any endless probe that has no resource. The Nigerian people will gradually understand the democracy that we practice. In some climes, when the parliament probes or carries out any investigation, they also have an attached body that deals with the resource that makes sure that they are executed. But in that form of democracy, when you carry out your own investigation as a parliament, you turn your report into the executive. You take your report back to the executive because you don't execute. You only make laws. When you oversight, you bring reports. It goes back to the executive. So the onus is on the executive to execute the one they think is in the public interest or the one they like. The same thing with the motions that we pass. Our motions are persuasive, trying to persuade the executive to do what they should do. But we take our motions first to assure the Nigerian people that we are aware, and two, to call the attention of the relevant MDA to what is happening on ground, and to invite them to take action. And that is the role of Parliament. When we have done that, the execution of such reports and resolutions is totally in the ball game of the executive. So it would be wrong to say that we do our job and it stops there, nothing happens. The executive should take it up from where we stopped. That is the kind of democracy we operate in this country.
All right, Honorable. So let's go back to the conversation you started earlier, which is about improving national security. I mean, with insecurity ravaging the northern parts of the country and some parts of the south, we've seen some dastardly and callous killings in Benue State, same patterns of attacks on the plateau. Governor Alia has continued to cry out about how helpless he looks. What major steps have been taken by the 10th Assembly in helping this administration improve security across the country?
Yeah, first I would want to emphasize that insecurity has become a global challenge. Things are bad worldwide. Several years ago, when I started to fly on airplanes, the searches that you go through today, you never went through them, and not just in Nigeria. The things you can't take on board an airplane today in America or in England or in Ghana, those days nobody will ask you those questions. So it's a challenge going on, and particularly with what is happening in the Sahel, in the north of Africa, light weapons are everywhere going around the African continent and everywhere in the world. So we must put it in that context. But that notwithstanding, government is doing what it can to contain this. You know, the Tinubu administration, when it came in, began to experience a decline in the occurrence of bandit attacks, Boko Haram, and other form of insurgency. There was a remarkable decline. Recently, there appeared to be an upsurge. Even the U.S. Army, recently in faraway Nairobi, having a meeting with heads of African military organizations, agreed to the fact that there is an increase continent-wide. So it's not just a Nigerian thing. But for us as a parliament, what we have tried to do to curb this is to ensure that every request for support for our armed forces meets with expedited action. We ensure that no delays for any request for funding. And we also make sure that anything they ask for, they get in full. And when they get it, we go ahead to perform our oversight functions to be sure that what we approved is actually used in the way and manner that we made the approval. I, for one, have been to Maiduguri. I know colleagues, Chairman Rules and Business have the time to go there. So you can think of members who are in such specific committees. They are busy. Many times the Nigerian people think that 360 of us must be present on the floor every legislative day debating bills and motions. But truth is that many will be on the field on oversight functions. So we carry that oversight function.
Right, I hear you, Honorable. I hear you, Honorable Wiley. Yes, there is increased budgetary allocation, and it looks like service chiefs are on the right path towards securing the nation. But why has it been hard keeping the northern part of the country safe? What exactly do you think is wrong?
Yeah, I mentioned that what is happening in the northern part of Africa, the Sahel region, is what is trying to shift down south. In fact, the American general who was addressing the African military generals in Nairobi a few days ago was even saying that the insurgents are trying to link up with the coastal part of West Africa to be able to do more harm. That's how dangerous the situation we are in. So it's coming from up north, and some people have linked it to the fall of Gaddafi in Libya. And that since that time, light weapons have been coming in from the northern part. So if it's coming back in from the northern Africa, part of Africa, of course it will pass through northern Nigeria to get into our country. So I think that's why we are experiencing more of it there. And thankfully, our military are doing their bit to ensure that it's stopped there and is driven back, and so that Nigerians can go to bed every night with two eyes closed.
All right, then. Let's talk about a recent developments in the House. The House of Reps has said it is probing the remittances of 5% user charge on every liter of petroleum product as enshrined in the Federal Road Maintenance Agency Act. And this is to unravel the factors responsible for alleged violation of the Act. And for a proper perspective on the Section 14(1)(h) of the FEMA Amendment Act 2007, there is a specific allocation to FEMA, and this mechanism was designed to provide a sustainable funding source for road infrastructure across Nigeria. But now, I want you to talk to us about what prompted the House to launch this investigation into a 5% user charge remittances. Can you also explain how the 5% user charge was designed to fund road maintenance in the country?
Yeah, you're talking to the right person, because the Right Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, made me chairman of that ad hoc committee that is looking into that, investigating that challenge, the 2007 FEMA Act as amended. The challenge is that 5% of the pump price of fuel, petrol and diesel was supposed to be allocated to funding repairs, funding FEMA for fixing, maintenance of road infrastructure countrywide, so that even states that have their own agencies will get 60% of that amount, while the federal will get 40%. But since all that time, nothing seemed to have been done. And the House is trying to find out why. And not only find out why, trying to make sure that going forward, we get that fixed. Many excuses have been given. Subsidy was a major problem. When you are subsidizing the pump price, at the same time you're asking for 5%, somebody said it will amount to government giving to government money, you know. But thankfully we are now at the period of deregulation. But like I said yesterday, when we declared the investigations open, I did say that law must be obeyed. The 5% must be paid. It's not an increase on the pump price, but whatever the pump price is, the 5% must be deducted. All over the world, even in countries around Africa, road maintenance is not funded from any national budget. Okay. It is funded from toll gates, funded from petroleum taxes like the 5% user charge for FEMA. Those are the kind of funding that maintains roads. And what motivated the House is the backward state of road infrastructure across the country, the length and breadth of the country. We thank God that our President, Mr. President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing his bit, putting a lot of resources into road infrastructure. The Minister of Works is running around the country. Today is in Calabar, tomorrow is in Sokoto, the next day is in Lagos. We see the work that is going on. But we think as lawmakers that we have a responsibility to support and make sure that this provision of the law is activated to support FEMA for us to get better roads.
And which is very important. But is there evidence that the funds have not been remitted as required? If so, how significant is that shortfall? Well,
the investigation has just started, so I will not quote the few, anyway, several now, because we've had memorandums from regulatory authorities, from state agencies, from umbrella bodies, from independent marketers. We're getting memorandums on a daily basis, and the committee is looking at them. So I will not want to divulge into what each specific memoranda is saying, but I would say that people have been taking advantage of what they consider a lacuna in the law. I believe that what was needed was a subsidiary legislation. It's not something that has to be done by the National Assembly. Okay. It is like on that day of the inauguration, the midstream, downstream, as well as other agencies were talking about a regulatory framework that had to be designed. That's not the job of National Assembly. But now that it's coming before the ad hoc committee, I can assure Nigerians that we're going to take it up, and this committee will ensure that that framework is put in place and sent to Mr. President, so that that framework can now be used to get that, that template that is used for petroleum pricing, to get it right as the prices of petroleum fluctuates in the deregulated market that we currently apply in this country. So Nigerians can look forward to results coming out of this ad hoc committee and our roads becoming better, which is our ultimate goal, for us to have good roads across the length and breadth of Nigeria.
All right, Honorable, but you know, which agencies or entities are supposed to remit these funds, and you know, what explanations are they given for any non-compliance, and what measure is the House taking to ensure accountability in this matter?
Well, we are looking at the Petroleum Industry Act. The provisions of the Petroleum Industry Act are so clear that the agencies that should collect revenues in the petroleum industry are clearly spelled out. The FIROS, the NMD, PRA, and others. So it's clearly spelled out, and we have extended invitation to all of them to come, including FEMA itself, to come and explain why they are not doing what they ought to do. And if they've been doing it, what are the results? What is the amount due to government? who and who is liable to pay, who is owing government. All those are the questions we're asking with documents to back up. And more importantly, we're also looking at the way forward to ensure that going forward, nobody is able to escape the law. Everybody has to obey the law. And we thank God that we have a president that listens. So when this regulatory framework is put together and sent to him, we are doing this pari passu with the investigation, the designing of this framework by the agencies that ought to do it, and sent to Mr. President while the investigation is going on. So we hope to achieve good results for the Nigerian people. I will not be able to say here on national television that this agency is to blame or the other is to blame until we submit our report to plenary. But then we are looking beyond reports. We are looking at results for our country.
All right. And, you know, what is the expected timeline for these findings? Can you confirm to us that the House Committee is expected to report its findings within 4 weeks for further legislative action? Is that correct?
Yeah, we have sought extension from the House, and Mr. Speaker has graciously approved extensions to remove the public holidays that have been many since we were inaugurated or announced, you know, because it starts counting from the day you were announced. So we've sought exemptions, deductions of all such dates, and deducting them, the number of days left for us, we are trying to work with them and ensure that we meet up. And where we cannot, we definitely will ask for extension. And I know that the House will be gracious to grant that, because we are doing this for the Nigerian people and our work can be seen in public. All
right then. Honorable, let's talk about another serious issue, budget padding scandal, which recently put the entire 10th Assembly under close scrutiny. Why does the issue of budget padding seem to, resurface with every appropriation cycle in Nigeria?
I think that term, budget padding, came into the lexicon of democracy in Nigeria in the 8th Assembly. And, but in real terms, what you call budget padding, if not a push to the extreme, is something that happens even in the U.S. democracy and other developed democracies around the world, except in countries where the legislature is such that is part and parcel of the executive. So they are part of those who prepare the budget and also just approve it. But our case is different. The budget comes in from the executive and we scrutinize. When we scrutinize, there must be plus and minuses. There must be areas where you agree and disagree with the executive. If it will come and go the way it came, then there's no need for a legislature. In fact, the budget is the #1 law for the legislature. Every year. That's the main instrument with which we work with the ministries, department, and agencies of government. So the legislature is usually the whipping boy in any democracy. Nobody likes an auditor, somebody who comes around to check what you're doing. When I was in the bank, those who worked in the ICU, internal control unit, were never liked when they visit branches. So I'm not surprised. All over the world, it's not akin to Nigeria, but it's worse in Nigeria. People don't like lawmakers.
All right, Honorable. Because of that, sadly, we do not have enough time to continue that conversation. But in 30 seconds, what more should Nigerians expect from the 10th Assembly for enhanced development in the country? In 30 seconds.
Yeah, the legislative agenda of the 10th Assembly has made our house the people's house. And Nigerians can expect laws that are people-oriented. And we can expect laws that will improve the living standard of the Nigerian people and increase the safety and welfare of our citizens. We can expect that the House of Representatives will be truly representative of the ordinary man on the streets of our country.
And Nigerians are watching. Thank you very much for joining us. Honorable Francis Wivey, Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you very much for watching, everyone. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But before we go, let's tell you that the views and reactions of our resource persons are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. Meanwhile, you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at 1 a.m. Get in touch with us on our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and X at TVC News NG. and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. See you again tomorrow. Good night, everyone.